In the landscape of modern, multi-domain conflict, the war of narratives has ascended to a position of co-equal importance with the war of munitions. A successfully deployed falsehood, a narrative that captures the imagination and directs the emotions of a target population, can be a more potent and enduring weapon than an armored division. Consequently, the discipline of countering an adversary's propaganda has evolved from a simple defensive act into a sophisticated and aggressive offensive science. This is the doctrine of counter-propaganda warfare. Its highest and most refined form does not seek to merely refute or block an enemy's message. It seeks to capture that message, to subvert its meaning, and to reflect it back upon its creator as a weapon of psychological and political self-destruction. The ultimate objective is not merely to win the argument, but to make the enemy's own words the cause of his own defeat. This is an analysis of that doctrine. It is a clinical dissection of the advanced, effects-based methods for turning an adversary's primary weapon, his own propaganda, against him. It is the art of dismantling an enemy's narrative not from the outside, but from within, transforming it into a poison that infects and paralyzes the very system it was designed to protect. To grasp this advanced methodology, one must first understand the fundamental weakness of conventional counter-propaganda. The amateur, when confronted with an enemy lie, believes his duty is to meet it head-on with a factual rebuttal. He engages in the earnest and often futile practice of fact-checking and debunking. This approach, while well-intentioned, is strategically flawed for several critical reasons. First, the act of refuting a lie almost always requires the repetition of the lie itself. This has the unintended psychological effect of reinforcing the original message in the mind of the audience, even if it is being debunked. The propagandist is happy to have his core message repeated, even in a negative context. Second, the act of constant refutation places the counter-propagandist in a permanently defensive and reactive posture. He is not fighting on his own terms. He is fighting on the terrain chosen by his adversary. His every action is a response to the enemy's initiative. He is perpetually one step behind, a dancer forced to follow the lead of his opponent. The professional practitioner of counter-propaganda understands that this is a losing game. He must seize the initiative. He must move from a defensive posture of rebuttal to an offensive posture of subversion. This is where the advanced techniques begin. The first and most powerful of these techniques is narrative hijacking. This is the art of taking the enemy's own core narrative, their most powerful symbols and slogans, and co-opting them. The meaning of the enemy's words is not denied, it is twisted, reframed, and turned into its opposite. Consider an authoritarian regime whose central propaganda slogan is, "Strength through unity." The amateur counter-propagandist would argue that the regime is not unified. The professional, using narrative hijacking, will embrace the slogan. He will disseminate stories, images, and intelligence leaks that use the very phrase, "strength through unity," as a bitter, sarcastic commentary. A story about a secret political purge will be headlined, "More strength through unity." A picture of starving citizens will be captioned, "The unified sacrifice for our strength." The slogan is not destroyed, it is poisoned. It is transformed from a source of pride into a source of cynical humor and popular resentment. The enemy's own words become a constant, public reminder of their own hypocrisy. This is a form of ideological judo, using the opponent's own weight and momentum to throw him off balance. The second technique is the relentless amplification of hypocrisy. No propaganda system is perfectly consistent. Every authoritarian regime is built upon a foundation of profound contradictions between its stated ideals and its brutal reality. The counter-propagandist's job is to identify these contradictions and to amplify them with the power of a searchlight. If a regime's leaders preach austerity and sacrifice to the masses while living lives of decadent opulence, the most effective counter-propaganda is not a lengthy ideological argument. It is a simple, factual, and visually powerful comparison. It is the dissemination of a single image that juxtaposes a photograph of the leader's lavish banquet with a photograph of a breadline in the Capitol. It is a short video that intercuts the leader's speech about national sacrifice with footage of his family shopping in luxurious foreign boutiques. No argument is necessary. The hypocrisy itself is the entire message. This technique systematically destroys the most critical asset of any propagandist, his credibility. The target audience, both the civilian population and the rank and file of the army, begins to see that their leaders do not believe their own message. This breeds a deep and corrosive cynicism that is far more damaging than active opposition. A person who is angry may still fight. A person who believes that the entire system is a hypocritical joke will not. His will to sacrifice for the cause is evaporated. The third and more audacious technique is the use of mimesis and the poisoned source. This is the art of creating and disseminating black propaganda, propaganda that is designed to look and sound as if it came from the enemy himself. The operator will create a clandestine radio station, a social media channel, or a series of leaflets that perfectly mimics the style, the tone, the jargon, and the formatting of the enemy's official state media. To the casual observer, it is indistinguishable from an authentic source. This poisoned source will then broadcast information that is, perhaps 95% consistent with the official party line. It will praise the leader. It will denounce the external enemy. It will report on production victories. It builds a reputation for authenticity. But the remaining 5% of its content is the poison. It is subtly subversive information, carefully designed to create confusion, to sow discord, and to induce paralysis. It might, for example, issue a set of contradictory orders to military units, causing chaos in their logistics. It might lavish praise on a notoriously incompetent but loyal general, thus subtly undermining the morale of the more competent officers he commands. It might report on a new rationing policy that is slightly more absurd and oppressive than the real one, making the entire regime seem ridiculous. The goal of this technique is to make the target audience distrust all of its own official sources. When a person cannot distinguish between the authentic state broadcast and the subversive black broadcast, he begins to believe that nothing is true. The entire information apparatus of the enemy state is thus discredited. The fourth and most intellectually sophisticated technique is the application of the doctrine of reflexive control. This is a concept perfected in Soviet and Russian doctrine. It is the process of feeding an adversary a specific package of information that will incline him to voluntarily make a predetermined decision that is, in reality, self-destructive. This is not about simply deceiving the enemy. It is about understanding his psychology so perfectly that one can predict his reaction to a given stimulus. The operator does not command the enemy to make a mistake. He creates the conditions in which the enemy, acting rationally from his own perspective, will enthusiastically choose to make the mistake. In a propaganda context, this means feeding the enemy's propaganda machine a story or a piece of information that it will find irresistible. The story must be something that confirms their pre-existing biases and fits perfectly into their desired narrative. The enemy propagandist, believing he has acquired a great scoop, will eagerly amplify this information throughout his entire network. However, the information has been subtly booby-trapped. It may contain a small, verifiable falsehood that will later be exposed, embarrassing the entire regime. Or it may be a true story that, in the long run, has the effect of alienating a key ally or a neutral power. The counter-propagandist has used the enemy's own psychological biases and media apparatus as the delivery system for his own weapon. He has made the enemy the willing agent of his own public relations disaster. These techniques are not deployed as a blunt instrument against an entire population. The fifth principle of advanced counter-propaganda is the fracturing of the base. The message must be tailored with scientific precision to specific segments of the enemy society. The goal is to shatter the monolithic base of support for the regime into a collection of small, distrustful, and competing factions. A single, one-size-fits-all message is the mark of the amateur. A message designed for the frontline conscript will be different from one designed for the career officer. The conscript will be targeted with messages that emphasize the futility of his sacrifice, the comforts of home, and the corruption of the generals who are using him as cannon fodder. The career officer, on the other hand, will be targeted with messages that appeal to his ego and his professional pride, suggesting that the incompetent political leadership is preventing him from achieving a glorious victory. A message for an oppressed ethnic or religious minority will amplify their specific grievances and promise them autonomy or liberation. A message for the urban intellectual class will focus on the regime's censorship and its persecution of artists and scientists. Each message is a wedge, designed to be driven into the pre-existing cracks in the enemy society. The goal is to make the war seem like a different and more personal disaster for each segment of the population, destroying any sense of a unified national cause. The sixth consideration is the channels of dissemination. The most brilliant message is useless if it does not reach its intended audience. The modern counter-propagandist has a vast and varied arsenal of delivery systems at his disposal. Traditional methods, such as leaflet drops over enemy lines and clandestine black radio broadcasts, are still effective, particularly for reaching isolated military units or rural populations with limited access to modern technology. However, the primary battlefield is now the digital domain. The Internet, and particularly social media, provides the perfect environment for the insertion of subversive and deniable messages directly into the heart of the enemy's information ecosystem. This is achieved through a variety of means. Networks of automated bots can be used to amplify a certain narrative, creating a false consensus. Memes, the simple, viral, and often humorous units of cultural information, can be used to carry a powerful subversive message under the guise of a joke. Online communities, such as forums for soldiers' families or groups for a specific profession, can be infiltrated. A single skilled operator using multiple fake accounts can slowly and patiently introduce new ideas, sow seeds of doubt, and create an atmosphere of dissent within a previously unified group. The ultimate effect of this multi-pronged, scientific approach to counter-propaganda is the inducement of a state of cognitive collapse in the target population and its leadership. This is the true objective of the campaign. The individual citizen or soldier finds himself in a state of profound psychological disorientation. He no longer knows what to believe. The official slogans of his government now sound hollow and sarcastic. The state news sources seem contradictory and ridiculous. His leaders appear to be hypocrites, saying one thing and doing another. He is told he is winning the war, but his own experience is one of shortage and defeat. He is told to trust his comrades, but the propaganda he consumes suggests that any one of them could be a traitor. This cognitive dissonance becomes unbearable. The result is not necessarily a violent uprising, but a quiet, internal surrender. The individual withdraws his belief from the system. He becomes cynical, apathetic, and passive. A population that has been brought to this state of cognitive collapse is a population that can no longer be motivated to fight or to sacrifice. The government's propaganda, its primary tool for mobilizing the will of the people, has been rendered inert. The army's will to fight evaporates. The victory of the narrative is thus achieved. The war is won not when the enemy has been physically destroyed, but when he has been so thoroughly discredited, confused, and demoralized by the echo of his own twisted words that he has lost the will to continue the struggle. This is the highest form of the art. It is a victory that is often invisible to the outside world. The enemy's collapse appears to be the result of its own internal contradictions, its own incompetence, its own moral decay. The hand of the counter-propagandist is never seen. He is the ghost in the machine, the silent saboteur of belief. He has not shouted a louder lie, but has masterfully engineered a situation in which the enemy's own lies have become the instruments of their own destruction. This is the future of information warfare. It is a subtle, complex, and intellectually demanding science. It requires a profound understanding of an adversary's psychology, a mastery of language, and the cold, detached patience of a master strategist. It is a war that is fought not for territory, but for the human mind itself. And in this war, the most powerful position is not to be the creator of the loudest and most pervasive propaganda, but to be the unseen actor who skillfully and mercilessly turns the enemy's chorus against itself.